So we're gonna go ahead and get started. If everybody will mute, that'd be good. I want to say hello and thanks for attending our La Plata County Democrats Club Luncheon. The goal of the club is to bring together all Democrats from the most conservative to the most progressive to celebrate our shared values, appreciate who we are, and to work together to put more Democrats in office. Now, those of you who have been on these before know that every month I read that statement, but I'd like to take just a minute to elaborate on that. We Democrats seem to spend a lot of time arguing amongst ourselves about what we want and what we'll support, but it's now time to come together to win elections. Not every Democratic candidate will be your favorite, but the alternative is much worse. It's become clear recently that the goal of many Republicans is to replace our democracy with a theocracy. Lauren Boebert recently said, quote, "I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk that's not in the Constitution." She also stated, quote, "The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That's not how our founding fathers intended it." Other Republicans want a theocracy led by white Christian, and I put Christian in quotes, evangelists. So we Democrats have to come together to do everything we can to maintain control of the US House, the US Senate, and the Colorado legislature. In my opinion, this is as big an election as any we've ever had. So thanks for listening to me about that. I'd also like to mention our club luncheon sponsor, Albrecht and Albrecht Law Firm, has been supporting this luncheon for several years now. If you need legal help, please think about Albrecht and Albrecht. Our program today will feature two speakers, Adam Frisch, the Democratic nominee for the Congressional District 3 seat, and Barbara McLachlan, our incumbent state representative and Democratic candidate for the State House District 59 seat. So a little bit of administration here. Everyone's asked to stay muted except for the speakers, myself, and Karen Pontius, who will be handling questions. If you want to get a question during the luncheon, please use the chat feature on Zoom. Please do not unmute yourself and speak. Send your questions to everyone in the chat window.
Just told us all to come.
If you're having,
this is happening.
if you're having trouble with your internet connectivity, you may want to disable your video. Audio only works better on slower connections. This Zoom meeting is being recorded and will be available within a day or so for viewing. You can choose speaker mode, typically in the upper right corner, which will bring up a larger video of the person speaking. I'd like to encourage everyone to donate to the La Plata County Dems in this election year. Monthly donations are particularly appreciated, and you can set those up on ActBlue. Monthly donations make it easy for you to give to the party with relatively little pain. This is our 6th club luncheon for 2022. The club luncheon committee is working hard to bring some great programs for this year. Our August speaker will be Chuck Stevens, the La Plata County manager, who was highly recommended by Marsha Porter Norton. And if anyone has any other announcements to make, please enter something in the chat window and we'll recognize you at the end of the luncheon. So our first speaker, Adam Frisch, as I mentioned, is running in the CD3 seat, currently occupied by Lauren Boebert. And he has graciously agreed to talk to us here. He just mentioned that he's in the Capitol, and after he speaks to us, he's going to head to the January 6th hearing. And so we'll allow Adam to speak, and then we'll field questions from the audience. And go ahead and if you have questions for Adam, go ahead and put them into the chat starting now. So let's give a big virtual round of applause to Adam Frisch.
Hey guys, sorry about that. When I agreed to do this, which I'm excited to do, I didn't realize I was going to be rushing out to DC having 27 meetings. I wish I was in La Plata and not DC from a weather standpoint, that's for sure. Spoke to Sol this morning. We are having conversations about, let's just say, having a super united front, not only with the Democratic Party, but also have some people join us from what I call the anti-Trump Republican group, or those that are unaffiliated, to try to figure out how we can do this. I just want to say thank you for everyone, whether you voted for me or Sol, whatever. I know there's a huge ground game that went on in the primary, and there's certainly going to have to be a lot of work to get our job done in the general. Just had conversation, just spent about a half an hour with Senator Bennett, and Senator Hickenlooper for a little bit. As you probably know, there's going to be a coordinated campaign. There's going to be a coordinated campaign committee with Governor Polis, Senator Bennett, and we're going to be contributing as well So we think there's going to be hopefully one singular office of which to work on. And we think it's obviously really important to do two things. One, keep the Democratic Party active and continue to find more people to come out and vote in the general. I don't think Representative Bobart's being done being a disrespectful person and a disrespectful, unattentive representative. So at the same time, we actually have someone on staff that spent 15 years working with Scott Tipton and helped corner him out in his latest effort to try to unseat Lauren Boebert. And so we're going to be trying to spend not only time with the Democratic Party, but also trying to reach out to those disenfranchised Republicans that are really frustrated with that. To remind everyone, the district remains 25% Democrat, 31 Republican, and 43 unaffiliated. So we just can't do it by ourselves. Some of my other time out here is being spent with the national media, both print and television. I really think this has the chance to be a national race on the fundraising side, that we think we can collect $25 from a lot of people across the country, as well as try to get out in the world and generate some of the big bucks, which I'm not thrilled about. That's what it's going to need to do to defeat her. And so as a case in point, from day one in November, when I started looking at this race, the assumption was it was going to be Democratic national headwinds, which are stronger now, but I think Representative Boebert is worse now than she was even in December, which is hard to do, and try to build this coalition that we need. There's this Hill website or Hill newspaper, which is kind of an insider's game that comes out of DC, and on Saturday, they had an article saying, 6 bright spots across the country for the Democrats with uphill wins in November. So I get my sunglasses. And we were not on that list, but my goal to the communication team is to make sure that within 3 weeks or 4 weeks that we're part of this conversation in the Western Slope in Southern Colorado, that there actually is hope to see this thing happen. We need 10% of her prior voters. She couldn't even get 2/3 of them to vote for her in the primary. There's a moderate electoral group of people there in the general, as you guys know. So we really do think that this is not a wild goose chase. She only got 51% of the vote in 2020. Marjorie Taylor Greene got 75. Gosar 70. Matt Gaetz 65. And this is the message we're trying to get across to everybody. Happy to help out as I can with Barbara, Kevin Coons up the road, and anything else I can do to try to make sure that we have as many Ds in office in the state capitol as well as the U.S. Capitol as possible. On that note, happy to turn it back over to you guys and questions or comments or pushback or feedback.
Okay, I think we have a couple questions. Karen, you want to read the questions?
Hi, Mr. Frisch. The first question is, can you talk about a proposal to ban assault weapons, and do you support it?
Go ahead. So I'll get to that in a minute. We got to figure out what to do about it. As an elementary school teacher during COVID, I remember the happiest days. Happiest part of the day was watching these families come and pick up their 4-year-olds that I was spending time with, and knowing that all these kids down in Uvalde are not going to be hugging their parents is a real bummer, and incredibly sad and everything. And I'll get back to the question. What the quandary that we have, and the comments that I was making before, not just Uvalde, but in Buffalo, was, I think we all had an answer in Western Colorado, just that I support the Second Amendment. The less we talk about it, the better it is for us. But obviously, because of the continuation of the horrible acts that are happening, we are going to have to take higher level steps and try to see what we can do. I'm really supportive of what the Senate passed a couple weeks ago with those 20 senators, as well as the House, and it got signed into law, so that's good. Something I've been thinking about a lot and been sharing when I've been on the road. I've talked to probably 100, 110 now. I would say Republicans are super Second Amendment people, camouflage Second Amendment hats, 2A hats. Everyone I've spoken to in Colorado views that the freedom that they have for their guns and their Second Amendment is really great, is really high. I haven't met anyone who doesn't believe that Colorado state laws are honoring the Second Amendment rights that they want to see. What they might not realize is there's an organization called everytown.org, which is probably the go-to place for gun safety rules and regulations. Again, everytown.org. And the good thing is it has Colorado ranked 10th out of 50 states in the country. And so Colorado, like a lot of things, we are a leader at a level that it'd be great if the other 80% of the states, there are 40 states, would come up to our rules. And so the question I'm trying to figure out is, you have people that are super happy with the gun rights they have, and they're living in the top 20 percentile of rational gun safety regulation. And so the question is, how do we get the rest of the country to kind of get up to where Colorado is and try to see what else Colorado could do to increase it as well? So that's my focus. As a part to what further stuff I want to do that's been passed about assault weapons and everything else like that, it's a tricky situation given the district of where we're going to be in. And that's the quandary that we're finding ourselves in. As horrible as these mass shootings are, the amount of women that are killed in domestic violence with pistols is vastly exceeds what horrible happens with AK-15s, whatever they're called. I certainly don't believe people need to go hunting with them. I certainly don't believe they're going to be protecting their family with them. And so the quandary that the Democrats are going to face in those districts that are not super D, which we're not, is how do we have a conversation about gun legislation? And I'm still trying to figure out how to get the job done to get moved. It took 26 years to get the current legislation that we had. I hope it's not another generation to do some further stuff, but it's certainly going to be tricky. And I'm open to ideas and suggestions about something that works for the country. And if we can get enough other people to join us to see some type of assault ban. But I want to be a little careful as we kind of gather our thoughts. Right now, the last 2 weeks since the election has been trying to have conversations with the rest of the Democratic candidates that ran to build this coalition and focus on some fundraising, and then sit down and kind of come up with a strategy and build our team to make sure that we have the best chance forward to defeat Bobart in the fall.
Okay, the next question is, it's important to get the next generation involved in this election. How are you including them in your campaign?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, Alex Walker did a pretty good job of getting out there and at least talking about that younger generation crowd. As I told him, I'm not 95 years old, and I'm only 54, and we'll have to make a connection. The couple of things when I get in front of groups, as I did with the CSU Pueblo Democratic leaders, is the first thing I'm going to do is not browbeat them for not voting. I think that's not the case, and that's what happens a lot. It's about going out there and say, why is some of your generation not engaged, and what can we do to make sure that you feel like your time is worth voting? I think they have a lot of the same concerns as a lot of other people do. I have a great climate track record from my time in city council up in Aspen. I was one of the leaders to make sure that we became the first municipality in the country to become 100% renewable, and spent a lot of time on some boards that are focused on renewable energy and getting financial rebates back to people from taxing some of these bigger homes that were kind of energy hogs, if you will. And so we'll just have to get in front of them and talk to them and listen to them and do more listening than talking. Alex went on vacation a couple of days after the campaign. And so he sent a couple supportive text messages of where we are. I would love to try to get him involved and see if we could have him help us kind of fire up the group, just like we're working to try to come up with some plans to help Sol do some outreach for us in a lot of different ways as well. So that's kind of our plan. I'm open for other ideas. Going to the universities later on in the summer and early fall when they're back in town or back in session. And as you know, you have one, there's a lot of other universities around that I think could be a key part of that. But we need every person's vote out there. The good thing to remember is that Bobart received 45% of the vote against everyone who voted in the primary 2 weeks ago, and 55% of the people voted against her or did not vote for her. So our plan is to try to figure out how to activate as many of those 55% of the people, and then realizing there's going to be a lot more people in the general election voting, but usually they're more moderate on average than the primary voter. And so we still like our chances to do that.
Okay, I think Karen had to step away for a second. I don't see any more questions in the chat, but I would like to ask you one question about healthcare, which of course will surprise everybody that's on the call here. But a month or so ago, there was a hearing in the Senate Budget Committee, and they had 5 witnesses, and I would categorize 3 of them as progressive, 2 of them as conservative, and some of them have appeared in other hearings. But Bernie Sanders asked each of them, do you believe that people should be able to get the health care that they need regardless of how much money they have? And strangely enough, all 5 of them said yes. So I'd like to put that same question to you. Do you believe that people should be able to get the health care that they need regardless of how much money they have?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. My father just retired after being an OBGYN for 50 years. And my youngest of 3 sisters is a current OBGYN, and my middle sister is a naturopathic doctor out in Olympia, Washington. So the whole healthcare vibe has been in my family for a long time. When people are asking me questions about healthcare at the national level and everything else like that, my focus is I want to focus on what is best for the rural aspects of our district, which is the vast majority of them. And so my laser focus is what's the best way that we increase access to healthcare in CD3. And it's probably going to be coordinating with other rural Republicans get sick as well. And it's probably going to be coordinating with other representatives around the western part of the United States to try to figure out how we can come up with something to move. At the end of the day, we still have this frustration of 60 senators, and there's a lot of scenarios that can happen in the fall. And while there might be some positive hopes that kind of change the current national conversation, the chance of getting 60 Democratic senators or 62 Democratic senators, which is what we could need, is pretty darn slim. Like, that's not going to happen. So the question is, how do we chip away at increasing healthcare affordability and healthcare access? And so, but the overall statement of what you asked, I think, is a fair one. The question is, what options are on the table that have some possibility of being passed? And getting rid of private insurance is not going to be one of them in the next Congress. As much as I would love to see some kind of different conversations, but at the end of the day, one of the hard parts about some of these really big jobs or really big issues is you got 170, every person in there has 175 days a year to kind of work on issues. And how do you balance working on inspirational issues and aspirational issues that keep people excited and involved and knowing that there's hope and path, and how much of that time should be spent on nuts and bolts, sometimes moving the ball, not with 50-yard touchdown passes, but with 3- and 4-yard runs to keep on moving the ball down the field to get things more accessible and more affordable. And so, yeah, I buy into the topic. The question is, if there's a deeper issue about what specific we want to work on, but getting people to buy into the goal is important before we start tackling all the tools. Did you have something more specific? I know you've been focused on this for a really long time, and thank you for doing that.
No, I mean, I certainly understand the fact that, some of the proposals have been made don't play well in CD3. So I'm frankly trying to work at a state level at this point, as opposed to a national level, because I'm with you. I don't think there's any chance at all that, we're going to get something done at the national level right now. So it's, I just wanted to kind of let the people hear, where you're coming from on that topic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the question is, how do we keep on pushing some bigger stuff to make sure that, again, it's more accessible and more affordable, and really focus on the specifics that affect when you don't have a huge urban hospital system within a couple-hour drive from you. And how does that affect veterans, the VA and the Veterans Administration, and how does it affect the mental health aspects that are really important? I think Pueblo, unfortunately, just lost 25 mental health beds. And one of the biggest issues we're facing all along southern and western Colorado is there's just a higher percentage of non-private pay. And that lack of revenue, unfortunately, which is part of the macro system that's broken, is when you start to lose private pay macro revenue, that's where private pay supply of private sector doctors start to flee to other wealthier areas, or other areas where they might be wealthy, but there's just not enough volume to make the business work. And I think La Plata could kind of probably be in one of those categories. And it's not, it could be viewed as a fairly well-off county in some aspects, but there's just not a volume business for some other people. There's not 400,000 people that are going to be going to each hospital. Anything that's going to get done is going to have to be done through a bipartisan manner. That's just kind of where we are right now. And I stand by my view of trying to work with the Problem Solvers Caucus, which are 29 Ds and 29 Rs in the House, as frustrating as that might be. But when it comes to immigration and possibly some more further gun safety regulations, and as well as healthcare, we're going to have to really focus on trying to figure out how to work with some other people that normally don't want to cross the aisle. But I think that's where the rural aspects come into play, because rural America is represented more by Republicans and Democrats. And so we have to realize that can be maybe an unnatural, but an important alliance that we need to make.
Okay, Karen, I think there's another question that showed up in the chat.
Yeah. Michael's asking that every young person under 30 he has met in this House district is talking about lack of affordable housing in Southwest Colorado. This is also a nationwide problem, but what is your strategy to combat this problem in Congress in this area?
Okay. Oh, you are. Okay. Give me 10 seconds. I get to say goodbye. Scott Martinez, one of the most powerful Democratic lawyers in the state, in the country.
Hi, guys.
This is La Plata Dems, whatever. So he was out here showing around. So anyways, okay, we'll stay in touch about stuff. I'll track it on later. So I spent 8 years on city council in Aspen. And the reason I ran in 2009 was to focus on affordable housing. And while people make fun of Aspen all the time, and some of it very well justified, what happens in Aspen ends up happening elsewhere. We're housing about 45% of our community in some type of subsidized housing. It started off as kind of a true workforce housing. It's now turned into more of a community housing, which is great. And obviously, it's not only in La Plata, but I've been visiting some of the poorest counties and poorest communities in the state and in the district, and they're trying to manage affordable housing issues as well. And so, I don't have all the solutions certainly, but I can tell you that I'm willing to spend a lot more time working on affordable housing when it can come up. I think one of the big things that could happen at the federal level, and I've had these conversations with Governor Polis at the state level. The state of Colorado has some extra protections for consumer rights, which I'm supportive of. But when you build multifamily housing in Colorado, the national average has a 1-year guarantee on some of these common elements, the roadways and the walls and everything. And in Colorado, it's 3 years. And while on one hand, that gives more protection to the consumers, what does happen is 2.5 years into all these housing construction projects, you start to see some aggressive tort lawyers running around trying to make claims that might not be worth making claims on. And that has scared away some of the housing developers that have a chance to build, whether they want to build in Colorado or Nebraska, Wyoming, or Utah or New Mexico. And so if there was a way for the state or the federal government to help supplement some of those additional insurance costs, because we need to attract as many builders as possible. And that's one of the things that need to happen, is that we need to figure out a way to get more supply in there. And then it'd be up to the city councils and the county commissioners to try to figure out the appropriate zoning rules. Aspen has some money that works out. Not every county, Pickens County is fairly wealthy, and we're aware of that. But the question is, how do we get more money into the hands of these other counties to make sure that we can increase the supply? I'm happy to talk about it later on, but when I talk to the county commissioners and the city council people and the mayors around the district, I do try to share a little bit of my knowledge in the affordable housing realm. And I know it's hard, but I know it's really, really important. It's not just happening in the fancy ski towns.
Okay, Karen, do we have any more questions?
I don't see any more questions for
So
Adam.
let me say one last thing about this whole gun thing. I haven't had a chance to see the chats. I'll look at them and respond back. I'm trying to give sincere answers and thoughtful answers as well as that goes forward. I'm not, my view is on guns. I think the plan is to try to come up with another level of packages, as opposed to try to pick one single thing that could stimulate a lot of conversations and go the wrong way. And I go back to my view is there are people, the vast majority of people are happy with common sense, sensible gun safety legislation. And the question, even in CD3, which is probably one of the most pro Second Amendment districts out of the 435. And the question is, how do we bring a package of deals that work for a lot of people that can get a majority of people to buy into? Because that's what we need to get past. I used to joke that a couple of months ago, I said the Republican answer to the gun safety was arming teachers in school. And obviously I'm not going to support of that. And God forbid, look what's happened and look what's come out of Lauren Boebert's mouth, that she thinks the answer to gun safety is making sure a bunch of teachers, administrators are running around with guns, which is obviously just a horrific idea of epic proportion. And so I'm not trying to be invasive on this gun issue. It's the number one issue that probably faces this district that has to be handled thoughtfully, in my mind, to try to make sure that we get someone at the table that's not Lauren Boebert. But try not to take it as an avoidance. It's just something that I think we need to be careful on, about some thoughts about what we want to do. As much as I like to do a lot of stuff, I'll look at all the comments. I try to remain accessible as possible. It's adam@adamforcolorado.com. And we do get back to everybody about that. And I appreciate all the ground game that you're doing. I'll stay on the call for a little bit. And to Barbara and anyone else, anything I can do for anyone else is, like, when I come back into Colorado, let me know. We need all layers of help to make sure that we get rid of some knuckleheads, as well as get as many Ds in the state capital as well as the national capital as possible.
Okay, I think we've reached the end of the time that we had asked Adam to participate. So let's again give him a big virtual round of applause for appearing here. It's obvious that he's very, very busy.
Thanks.
So
I'll stay on listening for a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. We appreciate it. So our second speaker is Barbara McLachlan. I probably don't need to do any sort of an introduction for this group, for Barbara. She's been our state representative for almost 6 years now. She's running for the 4th time, and she'll term limit out. Maybe she'll think about running for the Senate after that. I don't know. But, okay. So let's welcome Barbara McLachlan.
Thank you, Gwen, and thanks, Adam, for joining us today. It's always nice to have. It's nice to have you here, so we're very happy. Thanks for that. Yeah, this district, I used to go back and forth between Democrats and Republicans all the time. And this is the first time in a long time it's been held by one party. So I'm really excited, and I hope we can continue to keep District 59 a blue district. It used to be very red, and I won by 1 percentage point the first time, and then we've kind of been moving on from them. So today I was going to talk about my accomplishments in the House this year. I sponsored 30 bills that made it through to the governor's signing. So I was really excited about that. And then the Supreme Court came in and bumped that off the list of what's really important. And now I'm going to talk about today, what can we do? We can't do a lot about the federal government right now. Of course, we'll, get Adam elected. Absolutely, for sure. But we're pretty strong in Colorado right now, and we can keep our strength in Colorado if we maintain the majority. So I printed out this thing, and I'm going to have Gwen kind of show it to us. I didn't do it in all caps, so it's not yelling at you, but it's in bold. So if you feel being yelled at, just take a breath. I'm not yelling at you. So this election really is, and we kind of say this every year, but at least in Colorado, this election is really, really important. After this Supreme Court ruling, it's, and I'll let you read this, but abortion is legal in Colorado, and we're kind of an island with New Mexico, but right now it is a law. It is not in the Constitution, and we need to get a woman's right to health care. I can't believe I'm saying this. We need to put that into the Constitution. Apparently, you can't just assume that we're going to have the right to health care. We have to actually make that into the Constitution. And in Colorado, of course, that has to be put to a vote of the people. It'll never even make it to get to be a vote of the people unless we can keep the senators and House Democratic and keep our governor Democratic. So as a Democrat. So I think that needs to be a concern for all of us down here, but it has to be a concern for the whole state. La Plata County usually does pretty good on this. So I want to talk to you a little about Tier 1 races. A Tier 1 race in Colorado means the representative or senator is in a very tight race. And with redistricting, we now have 9 House and 6 Senate candidates at that status. And I am one of them. That means we have about a 50-50 chance of winning. So we need to not only get every Democratic vote, we have to get more than half of the independent vote. And Democrats are not really great about voting in off-season elections. And so we need to really get out there and get out the vote and talk to people and visit with people and make sure that everybody is getting the vote that they need and that we keep. The Senate is 3 votes away from losing Democrat majority. So we need to, out of those 6 Senate seats, we have to win 3 of them. We'd like to win all 6 of them. I'm going to give you some names down here, and I think Gwen can send this out to you so that you know where to go if you want to send money to these people or volunteer to help or call your friends who live in their districts to help, whatever it needs to be. Everybody needs this boost. So I'm going to start selfishly with me because you're my people. I need to raise about $200,000 this year. And when you start looking at $25 a donation, that's a lot of donations. So, that's what I have to do. And I never know if I'm going to reach that, but that is my goal. I need to pay my employees, first of all, a living wage, because I'm a Democrat and I believe that we should pay people a living wage. I think you've all met Michael Smith. He's on here today. He is my campaign manager. And it's really important to me that I pay him and that I pay the people who are helping us. Mariah Whitney, who is John Whitney's daughter, is my high school media person. She knows so much more about social media than I will ever know in a lifetime. So she is going to be doing that. And we're going to be paying her half-time. We're going to be getting a volunteer coordinator. And then we're having coordinators in the 3 main counties to make sure that we are addressing all the issues and we're talking to people daily about this. So here's the address. I have a committee to elect Barbara McLachlan. Here's a post office box and my address if you'd like to send there. You can go to my webpage and there's an Act Blue donation link. The maximum donation is $400. I don't expect everybody to pay $400. So take a deep breath. You're okay. My belief is that when people donate, they will probably vote for you. So it doesn't have to be the maximum to get people to vote. Michael and I are working on right now some kind of county-wide teacher parties, and to get teachers from all the districts, a $5 donation to my campaign. Again, it doesn't matter how much, it's just that they donate something, but then we're also getting beer donations and drink donations. So they will get a free beer with that $5 donation. We're hoping that kind of balances out. But we need to make sure we listen to what teachers are saying and doing. Cortez right now, they just closed one of their elementary schools because not because of lack of students, it's because of lack of teachers. So they had to get the biggest school and put all the kids from 2 elementary schools into 1 because then they would have enough teachers for everybody. That is shameful. People now are going to have to drive out of their way. It's not their local school anymore. They have to drive across town to go to another one where their kids aren't used to everything. And some of the same teachers, some of the new teachers. So we have to be really careful about what we do for our teachers in particular. So if you can help any of the other candidates in need, you can send them money directly. Just put your profession on the check. Here's the list of all of them. You can use Act Blue and look up their names, or this might be easier for you. I have a leadership fund, and that fund has no limit, donation limit to it. And I send money from that leadership fund to the Tier 1 candidates. So I make sure that they're all getting money from me, and I just have to raise money to go into this leadership fund. So if you can contribute to that, I will make sure that your check goes to where it's supposed to go. And I can only give $400 to each of them, but it's been a nice bonus. So I've done a lot of them already, and I'm just kind of working across the board and checking off the list of what I can do to help. So in Tier 1, there's me, there's Julie McCluskey, Mark Snyder, Mary Young, Ruby Dixon, David Ortiz, Tammy Story, Liza Hamrick, and Lindsay Doherty. And in the Senate, we have Lisa Cutter, Tony Exum, Dylan Roberts, Nick Heinrichsen, Kyle Mullica, and Tom Sullivan. 3 of these people, including me, are rural Democrats, and all of us are in tier 1 seats. You know, we were just saying that most rural areas are represented by Republicans. We only have 3 rural Democrats in the state. And I think it's really, really important that we keep a voice for rural Democrats loud and clear. We're not all, you know, the bills that we kill, you would be amazed with. But a lot of them come from our rural Republicans. And they think that, you know, nobody knows, nobody understands them, and we don't need anything urban. And, you know, so we try to work together with them. And in a lot of ways, at least on the Western Slope, we work really well with our Republicans who are rural, because we have to be the voice for the Western Slope. It's not a Democrat Republican. And a lot of people criticize me for having worked with Don Cornwell, but we were both on the same rural team out there. We disagreed on a lot of issues, but when it came down to rural votes, we really stuck together. We had a Zoom earlier this year with all of the representatives from the Western Slope, Democrats and Republicans, and all of us had done bills with each other. It was very intermixed in there. And we were really proud of that we could all speak together, be in the same, at least Zoom room together, and talk about issues of concern to all of us. So I think water, ag, rural, it shouldn't be Democrat, Republican. I think we're all in there together on this. So that's what we really work for on here. So I just want to thank you for helping out in any way possible that you can. Money is important, but there's also letter writing. We're going to need help door knocking, making phone calls. If you want to have a precinct town hall where you have just your precinct and we go around and just meet your neighbors and talk about issues with them, we can do that too. So I am happy to join you in whatever you end up doing. And when Gwen sends you the copy of this, I hope you can take a look and find some senators or representatives that you would like to represent. If you want to skip all the research and put any kind of money into my leadership fund, that would be good too. I've already sent out about, well, I think I've made 400, so you know, a couple $1,000s worth of donations already from my leadership fund. So I just have to keep building it up. And I think being a Democrat means that you support everybody and you lift each other up. You don't try to push people down, you lift them up. And that's what I'm trying to do with this leadership fund in particular, is to lift people up who are in really tough seats, and they lift me up too. I have a bunch of legislators coming down in a couple of weeks, and we are going to, right now, I think there's 8 of them, and we are going to go door knocking in Montezuma County because it's my new county. And we're going to go and door knock there, and they are coming down here and paying their own way. They've got an Airbnb that they're renting, and we're going to have a party. Michael, I think it's on the Sunday night that they're here. Anyway, we're going to have a party with, so you can meet all of them, and so they can kind of get to hear rural voices and you can hear urban voices, and we can kind of share ideas and see where their interests are. They all cover various interests in Colorado. So I'd love for you to meet them when they get here. So that's kind of it for this. What questions do you have for me? Karen, I figure I'm not even looking at that, so I'm.
Yeah, you got a really good question about healthcare. Patrick Herndon says, year after year, the Colorado legislature comes within one vote of passing a state effort for universal access to medical care that's mostly supported on the backs of employers. And if everybody remembers Colorado Care, it sounds like that, but he didn't say that. What can be done to finally get that last vote and be a state that has universal access to medical care through some vehicle?
And Colorado is actually ahead of a lot of states on this, but you're absolutely right, Karen. We do come very, very close, and then we get sent back. Of course, the first thing you can do is vote, but you only get one vote out of there that you get to, to vote somebody, and it may not be somebody in your district, so you can't do much about that. We need to actually talk with the Republicans who are voting no on this. We need to find out who's voting no, why. We need to have discussions with them. We have a lot of people, and I would say particularly on the Republican side, there's probably some on both sides, but they vote party line every single time. And if somebody tells them to vote no on this healthcare because we don't want the government involved in our lives, but please don't take away my Social Security at the same time, the government is in our lives. We need to, it's there and it's not always bad. I'm on Medicare and I'm saying, I like this controlled healthcare. I think it's probably pretty nice. So I think we need to talk to people, and a lot of people, and we need to find out who is voting no and go and have personal conversations with them. Next year, we will be represented by Senator Simpson, who is a Republican from Alamosa. He will be our new senator. And I say we start talking to him right away to see what we can do about getting these votes passed for healthcare. He's a good guy. I think you'll like him. He's a big water guy, and he knows a lot about rural Colorado. So I can't complain about him. He's not one of the crazy pants people that we had out there. So I'm sorry I can't give you any more information other than we need to talk to the people who are voting no. Lots of times people just talk to the people who are already voting yes and support you. And that's nice because you kind of get in the bubble of like, yeah, we can do it. But we need to talk to the people who are voting no and see why they vote no and what reason we can do. And maybe there's an amendment we could put on that would get them to a yes. We never quite know until we talk to them.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question from Steve Christensen. Who is the Republican opposing you? What are her positions that have problems to point out? And what is your strategy for winning Cortez? So there's your big topic. So
ooh, easy. No, her name is Shelley Shaw. You may not have heard of her because she just moved here a year ago from Texas. So that was kind of a surprise to me that, I've lived here for 4 generations, my family has, and I was a little nervous that I wouldn't know enough about Colorado. So I can't imagine knowing enough about Colorado after a year, but here she goes. She is what I would call a Trumper. She believes that we're going to have a civil war pretty soon. She had a very, very interesting Facebook page when she first ran, and she has taken most of it down. Fortunately, I have friends in Denver who copied everything. So they got all of this, but she, it was the Antifa January 6th. It wasn't Republicans. It was a peaceful thing. It was, the election's been stolen and she just happens to have all the proof of it. She is not doing a lot in Durango. I will tell you that because I think she's a little nervous about the number of Democrats here. She's doing a lot in Archuleta and Montezuma. The Montezuma Democrats are very, very excited. They have not had a local incumbent Democrat to vote for in 10 years. So they are ready to be motivated. We've been over there several times. I'm not sure I can win that county, just like I have never won Archuleta County, but we get a lot of votes over there. And what we need to do is get everybody to vote in La Plata County and then go over to those counties. And I'm just listening and talking to people. And they're very, very warm with us and very welcoming. We're going to be doing a lot of door knocking over there so that people know who I am. I'm going to be doing a lot of town halls. Gwen, you've done all this when you were running, so you know the joy of going to a place where there's Trump trucks going up and down the street with snakes on the flags and stuff. But I think most of the Democrats who have talked to us they're so upset with these radical right people. And there are a lot of radical right people in Montezuma County. But they're all kind of figuring that together, we just have to be stronger than they are. They're small, but very, very loud. And we just have to be large and maybe not as loud, but stronger. And I think we can do that. So they're very excited to have a Democrat to vote for, and I don't want to let them down. By being somebody who that they don't even know who I am. So I'm over there a lot.
You might want to mention, Barbara, just a little bit about the redistricting. There may be some people don't necessarily realize why we're suddenly talking about Montezuma County.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you a little backstory. When Michael first ran for office, he only ran because Montezuma County had been taken out of the district. And so this is his way of getting back to me. He put it back in my district.
Oh, terrible.
I lost Hinsdale County, Uray County, and Gunnison out of my district, and I picked up Montezuma. So now I have 4 counties. I don't have to drive over Red Mountain Pass in the winter, so there's a good thing. But it made my district really, really close now. It's more of a 50-50 chance of winning. So I am not going to take anything for granted. I'm going to work just really, really hard. And I think that's the way to do it. I don't want to lose because I didn't work hard enough. But I also think when I talk to people and go to their doors and listen to them, it shouldn't matter what party you're in. I'm hoping that they will vote. You know, there's Shelley Shaw will be taking all the people who were never going to vote for me anyway. I mean, I don't even have to really talk with them. You know, they've hated me since day one, and they write a lot of letters to me. I will tell you that. That's fun. But I think I can win because I'm going to be listening to a lot of different kinds of people. And it's a lot of a new district. So here we go, off to Montezuma. I don't have all of Montezuma, which is interesting. They have 2 precincts that were very conservative over by Lewis, up in there. And both of those are in McLachlan's district. They're over into 57, 58, I think it is. So I don't have all of Montezuma County, but I have the 3 major metropolitan hubs of Cortez, Mancos, and Dolores.
Okay, we have a question. Do you think what's happening right now, the January 6th committee, which is tearing Trump apart, is going to help by the time of this election in the fall?
You know, what I read is that it is helping already. There's a lot of people who are going, that woman said a lot of stuff. She really knew what was going on. And I think the more we hear, the better. I'm not sure how much effect it will have on my race in particular, but I think it'll have a lot of effect on CD3, which that will have a lot of effect on my race. If more people are voting.
Your laundry soap is destroying the earth. I know that it hurts, but
Sorry, go ahead.
So I think when we start supporting Adam more, I think that will drift down into my race, but I'm not sure if January 6th necessarily will affect me. I don't think there's a lot of people who are voting for Shelley who are going to debate whether they should vote for me or not.
Yeah.
You know, the J. Paul.
I'm sorry for the noise interruption. I was trying to queue up the video that Michael Smith put in, and he said it's a great video about the change in polling before and after the Roe decision. The Dems are winning the generic ballot right now, which is good news. Let's hope we can believe our polls this time around. So
yeah, we did that once, didn't we? Yeah.
And I don't see any other actual questions.
Barbara, do you want to go over the bills?
Oh yeah.
If you passed?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can share that.
This is my original speech. The Supreme Court kind of blew things up on me. I had to cry and get over it and move on, but.
So I have to try to find it.
So I think it's interesting that the Republicans always say they want freedom, 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 and that's what they fight for. And with Roe versus Wade, we actually had the freedom whether you wanted to have an abortion or not. You didn't have to have an abortion. It was just a choice. And then they're so excited to vote in this thing that takes away all freedom from pregnant women. So I haven't quite figured out freedom for who. It seems like white men. So I'll just kind of go over this real briefly, but it's these are my education bills. A lot of them had to, the biggest one was that we increased funding for public education for all the districts by about 9% this year. And so teachers in Durango are getting a pay raise. Gunnison schools gave everybody a 9% pay raise. So I'm hoping it's never enough. I know that, but Tabor prohibits us from doing a lot more than this. And so we got a lot of money into education this year. And we are thinking if the economy stays strong, that in 2 years, we'll be able to pay off the budget stabilization factor. So I'm very, very excited about that. Our teachers need the money. And then the next two were kind of interesting. Para retirees, people who retired from teaching, can go back in. Normally, you can only work 110 days on para, and this allows them to work full-time if they want to. If you live in a rural district, you can go back as a teacher, and then anywhere in Colorado, you can go back as a substitute. So we're hoping that that relieves some of the teacher shortage. If you have a question about any of those, I'm not going to read all of them out loud, but if you have a question, and Gwen will send this to you, so we can do that. The last three on the education thing are about higher ed. I couldn't read it while you were moving it. It was kind of a silly bill, but CU could report 100% of their tuition revenue as part of for bonds, so they could get a higher rate on their bonds. Didn't move money anywhere. It was just what you could report. And now all the schools in Colorado can do that. And so all of them will have a little bit more borrowing capacity, to fill in gaps when they can. Let's see. Oh, and one big bill that I did is we were providing full tuition and education costs and mentoring coverage for foster youth in Colorado. So everybody who's gone through the system as a foster youth who may not have anybody at home who's ever gone to college or is encouraging them to go to college or knows anything about it, this will give all of them free tuition to any Colorado school. It will also pay for their room and board, and they will have a counselor with them the whole time throughout college to make sure that they're, choices of classes and things like that, because a lot of them, when they were switching families all the time, just never got that opportunity. I have a few bills that for the tribes this time. A big one is we have money for a research project to go to Fort Lewis College through the Colorado history, and they're going to be checking on the federal boarding school and how many people died in that and what went on during those times. There's been no documentation of anything of it. Tom Stridikas has been really, really supportive of this. As soon as somebody brought this bill up to him, he said, yes, let's do it. There was no I'm going to go to the board and talk about it with them. He just made an executive decision that this is more important than anything we could be doing. So Grand Junction has done it up there. Now we're bringing it down to Fort Lewis. We don't know what we don't know yet about that. So I'm interested to see what the research comes up with. We also have $5 million to the Ute tribes to either renovate or construct a new behavioral health facility. They will choose what they want to do and who they want to work with on that. But they were very excited to get that going for them. And then a couple of other smaller ones that we are being more inclusive of the tribes in legislation and inviting them every year to come speak to us and making them fully aware of all the programs that they could be getting money from and getting grants from and things like that. So really trying to work closer to our tribes. Transportation, I delayed the increase in gas fees by 9 more months because we had voted that in last year. So just to give everybody a little break, I have a Rotary license plate that came out to raise the notoriety of Rotary. And I am now an honorary member of the Daybreak Rotary Club. So for a license plate, that was pretty good. And we also have, it was a really interesting bill that I did with Uray County. You can designate all or a portion of a highway for over snow use. There's a lot of roads that in the summertime are used a lot, but in the winter they aren't. And they never really had official permission to use those roads that there's no major traffic on for snow use, cross-country skiing or snow. So the county can decide how they want to do this. So the rural counties were really excited to have this because they haven't been able to use the roads that are already in existence for outdoor recreation. In agriculture, we have, I'm on the Water Resources Review Committee. That's an interim water committee, and we travel around the state to see what the water issues are. And we've added agriculture into that name because we don't want anybody to forget that we have to talk about agriculture. They use most of our water in Colorado. And we are working on having them be more sustainable with their water and to be able to store it better and things like that. Water in Colorado is not a partisan issue. It can't be. Our upper basin has been conserving water forever, and the lower basin is not. And we're doing a compact review soon with all the basins, both the basins, to say that Arizona really has to start cutting back. They're the worst culprit, you know, a golf course on every corner. And they're using lots and lots of water. And we can't do that anymore. We don't have the water to give to them anymore. But Lauren Boebert did tell me that she thinks having Lake Mead and Lake Powell as water storage is just stupid, and that Colorado should be taking their water. And so somebody had to explain the water compact to her, and she knew nothing about that. So that was kind of an interesting conversation. And then for my first time ever, I added 2 amendments to the long bill. That's our big state budget, and everybody tries to add amendments in there. And I got up there with a Republican and we did these. And I don't know if you know about the beef sticks for backpacks program, but they make these beef sticks and they give them to kids every week in their backpack when they take lunches, you know, food home for their families. And this gives them a really good source of protein that they can take home every week. It's through CSU, and we just gave them more money at CSU to manufacture these. So it's all the money is being kept in Colorado, and it's feeding poor kids. You know, it's feeding and giving good protein to kids. And then we also have another $100,000 to the CSU Ag Next program, which researches animal and ecosystem health and enhancing profitability of the supply chain in Colorado. So it's keeping all the money in Colorado, it's creating jobs, and it's creating sustainable agriculture. So I was excited about those. For business, I extended a Main Street Business Recovery Loan Program. It's been a really good program in Colorado that we had 100% support from the Colorado State Treasurer on this, and it helps out small businesses in a lot in rural Colorado, but it's a Main Street business. It gives them short-term loans that they can use to increase their business, really low payment rates. And we want all the small businesses to recover fully. And so they get some premium tax credits for that. So we were excited about that. We also increased the amount of sales tax revenue a small business may keep in order to cover the expenses of their taxes. You know, we have them pay for these taxes and they have to pay so much out of it. So this just kind of covers it so they get a little bit more money in their pocket. And one of the ones that the local police and sheriff brought to me, it seems kind of silly, but there was a law on Colorado books that peace officers could not live out of the district with which they served. So if you want to serve in Durango, you have to be able to afford a $600,000 house, and they couldn't do it. And so they were sneaking away and living in rural districts and then not telling anybody and sneaking, you know, they had post office boxes, so nobody would know that they weren't living here. So we just made it legal that if, you know, they can go to Aztec and live, they can go to Mancos, they can go somewhere else to live where it's more affordable and still serve in for the Durango Sheriff and Police. And so they were really excited about that because we think we'll be getting more people. And Sean Smith testified and he goes, you know, people live in New Mexico and they're sheriff officers and they can drive all the way from Aztec to Durango and they can't do a thing while they're driving. They can't look at any traffic accidents. They can't see if there's help that's needed because they are not officially on duty because they're not officially on because they don't live in the district. So he said he's kind of excited for that because now when they're driving to work, they'll be able to do service between Aztec and Durango that they couldn't do before. So it'll kind of increase the force that we have in our very rural districts. In healthcare, sorry, Gwen, it's not longer than this, but this one provides dementia training for people who work in nursing homes and adult healthcare. It mandates that they do this now. There's a lot of pushback, like we don't have time to mandate, but if you have a family member with Alzheimer's, you'll be really glad that somebody knows exactly how to take care of them. It's not as easy as it should be. We also did a dental therapist option so that this will be really, really good for rural districts because it's halfway between, it's almost a dentist. They have to refer to a dentist for a lot of the work, but we can have more dental therapists in schools and nursing homes and things like that to take care of everything but exactly what a dentist has to do. And also for the COVID thing, a lot of people were not admitted, they couldn't get in to see their loved ones during COVID, and a lot of people died without any family member around. So this requires hospitals to make allowances for people to come visit people who are really ill. And the hospital still has control over who can come in and out, but they have to make it easier. They might make it that you can only come in through one door, or you have shorter visiting hours, but they do get to see their loved ones. Karen Zink had some stories for me about how people in her family died and nobody got to say goodbye to them, and there was nobody there. So this was just kind of the humanitarian aspect of healthcare. And then you get a free Columbine there at the end of the page. So how was that for 30 bills in 1 minute, 2 minutes?
That's
We
pretty
have,
good. There's a couple of questions about the $400 donation limit. And I thought, I went through that 4 years ago. It's $200 in the primary, $200 in the general, but they'll let you make the full $400 donation at any time. But that's $400 per person. So if it's a couple and you and your spouse want to donate, you can each donate $400. So, I think that's clear. And obviously, if Barbara's trying to raise $200,000, she needs to get as many large donations as she can. So if you can afford to do that, like we talked about before, now's the time to really get involved in these races. It's going to be absolutely critical to keep the extreme right wing from taking over the country in the long run. Karen, did you have some more questions?
What's happening with PERA's underfunding, PERA, the retirement system?
We paid back a lot to PERA this year. And we have plans to do it in the next 2 years. There's money been put aside to make some very giant payments in the next few years. And we're hoping that PERA is all back to normal within a few years. But we made a huge payment this year. We are so restricted by Tabor in Colorado. It's awful. And once again, we should be just paying our debts to people, and instead we have to vote on them and find money for them and every time. So, but yes, PERA is a lot healthier than it's ever been, which is good because I'm on PERA, so I'm really glad it's healthy. And we're working very hard to make sure that stays healthy.
And Patrick Herndon made a statement. Higher education, particularly that goes on to graduate and professional training, has become financially onerous for many that have $250,000 or more in debt, which dramatically distorts career choices after finishing higher ed. What can we do about this at the state level?
So are you, Patrick? I don't know if is Patrick still on. I don't know if that was talking. I didn't. Oh, there you are. Hi, Patrick. Are you talking about college tuition payments, or what? What exactly? I don't know if you can clarify that with me. Yes. Okay. Again, it's part of Tabor, and I hate to keep blaming it on that, but it used to be that the state would pay like 60% of college tuition, and students would pay 40%, and it was affordable tuition. You could get that paid off within a lifetime. And now it's only 40% from the state and 60% from the students, because Tabor doesn't allow us to say we need more for higher education. So we have done some loan programs. We've done a lot for teachers. I know about loan forgiveness because they're going into a profession that won't pay them a lot to ever pay off their loan, so they don't go into it. So we're trying to do a lot of loan forgiveness for people. We are working really hard about, again, it gets voted down a lot, but we're trying these bills to give people more. We have a generation of people, I'm part of the generation, who did not have to pay a lot for college. And I think everybody thinks that's still the way it is, and it's not at all. It's a very, very expensive venture. And we say, oh, you should go to college and just have fun. It's like, you can't. People have to get out of there in 3 years because it's so expensive. They're dying for scholarships. And then they come out with these huge debts and they can't buy a house. You can't do anything when you have huge college loans. So we work on this a lot. We have a lot of like Invincibles. There's a lot of programs like that for younger people, and they work really hard with representatives and senators to get more loan payment programs. So we are working on it, but it takes a lot of time to figure out how to. I would like to kind of do something like a service where, like the military used to be, that you could do some kind of service and not serve in the military if you did that. But what if people put in 2 years worth of service and got their college loans dismissed or something? I don't know how that works, but I think there's interesting ways that we need to look at it. And Patrick, we're working on it because I don't think people understand how much debt kids have.
And the last message is Jean is asking that our treasurer, right, Dave Young, is that who you're referring to? The state treasurer called the other day and said he'd be over for a joint fundraiser with you, Barb. Is that really a possibility?
Oh, yeah, I love Dave Young. I think he'd be great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so let's see when that happens. I'll give him a call today and see what he has in mind. And yes, I think you guys would really, you're not supposed to really like your state treasurer. You're not even supposed to really know who he is, I think, or she is. But Dave Young is a really solid person who, you know, he was a teacher. He gets education funding without a doubt. His wife is a state representative, so he knows a lot about what goes on. I served with him in the House before he became treasurer. And by the way, have any of you looked at the unclaimed property fund? Have you gotten online for that? I just made $6,000 by finding unclaimed property out there. So the state has it. You might as well go in and
Oh my goodness.
your name appears.
Judith is asking, thank you for inviting the tribes to address the General Assembly. The Southern Utes have an addiction program. Does that qualify for behavioral health money?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And we gave them, you know, we gave them so many million, 5 million, and they will be matching that and getting out. We're hoping that they work with the two tribes together to put money in, and perhaps Toyac and Ignacio, and getting the towns around to do it, because it's absolutely a necessity in the tribal lands right now. And they were very excited about getting this money.
Excellent.
Okay, I think that's it on the questions. So let's give a big virtual round of applause to Barbara,
Thank
taking
you.
time out of her day to join us. And again, I emphasize we need to do everything we can to reelect Barbara and to get Adam elected and kick out the #1 clown in Lauren Boebert Circus. So we appreciate that. Did we have any announcements, Karen? Did anything show up? I don't recall seeing anything. Okay, so thank you for attending. And again, please join us for our August luncheon with Plata County Manager Chuck Stevens. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.